What's up, guys? Welcome back to part 4 of the K969 rebuild series I'm doing. And in this video I will mainly be covering the CVDs and the swing arms that you can upgrade to if you're doing any of this kind of stuff that I'm doing here, especially switching out to different metal options that you could try. Now when it comes to the swing arms, the plastic ones that come with the K969 are actually not too bad. So if you have to use these are okay. But if you eventually want to switch to metal, I'll show you a couple different things you can do to make something else work in replace of these. And then the CVDs, the stock CVD is only 25 millimeters, and I have a 27 millimeter extended version of the CVD that is better to run with the metal diffs, because the metal diffs are actually a lot shorter than the plastic stock ones that you get. Let's see. So you can see it's significantly shorter by, up to 4 to 6 millimeters, and this one's even shorter than that. So you have to run extended CVDs if you want to run this rigid rear axle that I have here, or even these aftermarket differentials. You're going to need the extended. I mean, you can kind of get away with the stock ones with these, but they just barely make it into the cups there. So it is doable to use the stock versions with these aftermarket differentials out there. But if you're going to mess with the camber, like you say, if you're going to do some swing arms that are adjustable to bring in the camber, or even bring out the swing arms and the bottom out, if it pulls the wheels away, the CVDs are going to get further and further away from the diff, and they might actually get to the point where they're not making contact and they fall out really easy. So just something to keep in mind. So if you want to not have to worry about that, you'd have to find one of these extended CVDs that are supposedly 27 millimeters long compared to the stock ones that are supposed to be 25 millimeters long. And they look very similar, but if you get up close, you can tell the differences. Let's see if I can do this. So yeah, it looks like they're longer than just, it's supposed to be 2 millimeters longer, but I guess that's about 2 millimeter. They almost look like they're like 3 millimeter long, but this is supposed to be a 2 millimeter extension, which does make a huge difference when it comes to reaching those differentials. So I would definitely recommend finding these, but these are very difficult to find. You're not going to be able to find them on Amazon, or maybe not even eBay. I have to use AliExpress, and I actually ordered some from one company and they sent me these, the standard size, so I have to get my money back on those, and they took forever to even ship it out. And then I found a little bit more expensive ones on a different seller on AliExpress, but they actually sent me the right ones. So if you go real cheap trying to find these, they might not send you what you need. You might just have to, I think I had to spend like $5 to get a set of 4 of these. And then these were like, the ones I got, these were like maybe $3 or something for a set, 3 to 4. So it was only like $1 or $2 difference, but I mean, obviously if you're trying to save a few bucks here and there, you want to get, the cheaper one if you can, but also you get what you pay for sometimes. So they didn't send me the right version, but I paid a little bit extra and got the right ones, which, I'm happy that I actually found. I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to find these, and I wouldn't be able to use this differential if I didn't get these extended versions of the CVDs, because these stock ones will not reach. So, and they're a little bit different where the O-ring is. So there's a little bit different material. It's not like a huge difference. They're basically the same size, but they machine them a little bit differently. And then it seems like they might be slightly, like the threading might be slightly shorter on the extended, while there's a little bit more threading on the stock one. It's a very subtle difference, maybe about ½ millimeter. And you can see where they shaved the material here, it seems like it goes back a little bit further on the extended than it does on the stock one by like 0.5 millimeter. So they're slightly different in some areas, but the big difference is of course the length of the little dog bone here, which is the most important thing that needs to be extended to be able to reach all the way in to get to that cup in there. So yeah, if you're gonna run any of these little aftermarket metal differentials, I would definitely recommend trying to get some extended CVDs. So in the front, since I'm doing a rear-wheel drive setup, I don't need the little dog bone pieces for the front because there is no differential. So as you can see, I just took out the little dog bone piece and I used just the first half. So I'll show you how I did that real quick. It's very easy. This little O-ring here keeps the tiny little metal pin in place. If I can get it. So yeah, once you get this little O-ring out of the way, there's a little pin in there, right there. And all you gotta do is push it through, get it to come out on the other side, grab it, there we go. So once you pull that out, let's see, so this comes out. There's a tiny little piece that goes inside. So that little piece goes back inside this. And then you put the pin back through that. So this little pin, if you want to put it back together ever. So that's the only thing that's holding it in place is that pin. So, and then the little rubber O-ring just keeps that pin from moving or coming out of place. So that's what that O-ring is there for. So if you just want to run like no differential in the front, you have to rip out that little part of the little dog bone piece out, and then you can just use this to screw the wheel onto and put into the hub, the wheel hub there. And so that's all you gotta do for that. So that's what I did for the front two wheels. And then in the back, as you can see, I'm using the extended. So you can see the extended are good because they can reach. So depending on what kind of camber or whatever I'm going to use, these are good. But I'm not going to actually be using this differential anymore. I'm going to swap out to this one. So it's even shorter, which is mainly why I got these extended, because like I said, you can get away with the stock ones with these aftermarket differentials. Let's see if I can get this in place. There. So like the stock ones, you like stop like right about in this area here, while these extended go even further in. So I don't want to go too far in though, because going up and down, they might actually start making contact on the edge there. You can see how they'll start hitting if I go too deep in there. So, it's mainly going to be used with this shorter diff is what they're for. But if you want the extra security, they will work with these. Diffs you find on Amazon everywhere. But like I said, you could still get away with using the stock CVD. So that's what I'm doing to make that setup work in there. And I already talked about these diffs in part 2 and stuff. So if you haven't seen part 2 or part 3 or even part 1 of this series, I suggest going back and watching those videos to kind of get caught up on what I've already covered, so you are up to date and you pretty much know what I'm talking about, where I'm at right now and all this. Okay, so that pretty much covers the little CVDs. Now the swing arms, like I said, the plastic ones that come with the car are pretty good. The top ones, are good. You just can't adjust them, and I want to be able to adjust the camber. So The top ones are the easiest ones to modify to be able to give you camber. The bottom ones are a little bit more difficult to be able to make that work. What I did a while back with my original housing that I pretty much destroyed, I made little 3D prints that would extend this out or in depending on how much I wanted to change the camber from the bottom. So I would just print out a piece that would bring the little pin further and further out to kind of make the bottom of the wheel go out, and then, you know, so that the top would go in without having to mess with the top swing arm. But honestly, I don't really like this method. I'd rather just make, you know, little arms on top that I can adjust with a little 2mm screw like these, and then just basically keep the bottom at the same, you know, distance as the stock. Because even after doing all that, I ended up going with almost the exact same distance as the stock, even plastic and the metal housing comes at. So there's no point in continuing to do any more 3D print mods down here for the bottom swing arm, since I'm pretty much fine with the exact distance that the stock ones come. So that was one of the options I tried, you know, a while back, that it was definitely a pain to do, making these little 3D print and then having to drill out holes and then hold them in place with little nuts that just, so the differential just barely clears without hitting any of these little nuts in there. So that was, I mean, that was one method to try. It worked, but I don't want to have to do it because it was tedious. It was just too much work for what I'm trying to do. I'd rather just have it a lot more simplistic. So I'm not going to do that again. But hey, I mean, for a prototype, you know, it worked. If I wanted to ever extend this out, I could just change the length, and, you know, in the 3D print to push these further out. So that is an option if you want to go that route, but I wouldn't recommend it. The stock distance is fine for the bottom swing arms if you have some upper swing arms that you can actually adjust with a screw. So I'll go over the upper arms here in a second. So if you've ever gotten all these little metal upgrades, especially like the original metal upgrades that came for the K969 and K989, you're probably familiar with these. And nobody really uses these because they're trash, to be honest. Like, the little thing in there doesn't have a lot of range of motion, so you can't get it to go down very far at all. It like barely goes down, and I need a lot more range of motion than that for my suspension and everything. And then you'd have to put a screw through it, you know. And then the screw heads, depending, I mean, I have other screw heads that are much like smaller or whatever. This is for demonstration, but a screw head would be hanging out the bottom, and then that would be rubbing on the ground, and you want this as like flat and flush as possible, so when the suspension goes down, the screw head isn't scraping along the ground. So this design is just terrible, and that's why I've never ended up using these. That's why I had to end up sticking with the stock plastic ones that use a little metal ball, you know, these little balls. So you can see how they don't stick out of the bottom, so they can get real close to the ground and not scrape, and that's what I want. And they have a lot more range of motion than these do. So I stuck with the plastic bottom swing arms because these just weren't cutting it. So just giving you a heads up on those. I'm pretty sure if any one of you have actually purchased these before and tried to use them, you found that out the hard way. Now here is the new version that I found they've come out with that look very similar because they're the same shape as even, you know, the stock plastic one. They're pretty much all the same shape and design as the stock one. They're just made of metal, and then the difference is on what they use here. And this actually uses one of those tiny little balls that are in there, but the only problem is it doesn't have a lot of range of motion. Like, I needed to go a little bit further back this way, but that's a lot easier fix, and I don't have to have a screw head hanging out the bottom. So these will be a better option for what I'm gonna be doing here, because I want to swap out those plastic ones to these, since it's got one of these little metal balls in here instead of obviously this kind of setup, which just won't work. So just a waste. It's a waste of money to get those, to be honest. While these actually have a better chance of getting some use out of. So what I'll do is I'll Dremel away a little bit of the material here, and then I'll allow this to lean back even further, because I need it to lean back. When this goes down with the suspension, I need this to lean back a little bit further. So I'll just Dremel a little bit of that material out of there and then let that lean back, and then that should be good. And then these should be a better option than these plastic ones if it works out the way I'm hoping, because I'd rather have metal than this plastic, because this stuff gets torn up pretty easy and it gets worn out, and then the little balls will start to fall out easier the more it gets worn down. So I'd rather have metal ones if I can make it work. So I definitely know that these will be a better option for the rear end, for the rear suspension and everything. Now in the front, it's going to be a little bit different. And if you can see, before I talk about the front here, I'll just show, like, I'm going to reverse, because usually the springs I would have in the back over here, if you've seen my first video, you'll see that the springs were in the back on this housing. I had them on the back end. But since I'm running low profile bodies like the P1 GTR, and the back comes down really, really low underneath the body, that these springs, the top of them kind of almost makes contact with the inside of the body. So if I can just move them to the front side over here and make this work, then it'll be a much better option, to where these aren't going to get in the way of the body. Any low profile body I run, the springs will now not be in the way. They won't be back here, like, making any contact with the back of the body at all. So I'd rather have them up front. It looks very close to the gears and everything, but once I'm done, I think I'll have enough room to where it's not going to interfere with the gears at all. It'll be close, but it won't be in the way. So I'd rather have them up front, and then I'll switch the little toe arms, these little adjustable toe arms for the rear toe. I'll have them go to the back end here, and then I can adjust the toe from the back side of the wheel to where if I tighten it, it'll, make it go forward, or, if I make it longer, it'll go this way. If I shorten it, it'll go back that way. So I'd rather have them in the rear end here, and that will be down lower and won't be in the way of hitting the body at all. So I'd rather have that back here while the springs are up front here. Now, to the front here on these swing arms, see, I shaved these plastic ones down so they can actually fit behind the wheels when I rotate them all the way about 90 degrees. I obviously went pretty far. I shaved off a lot of material, but when they're stock, they would usually, like, just barely rub or hit the wheel. So I shaved away material so they wouldn't make contact. So the metal ones, if I'm going to try to get the metal ones to work in the front, which I do want to get these to work in the front as well, I will have to just shave off a little bit of material here and a little bit of material here and here. Since I don't need any of that, I can just make it, I can slim it down a lot, so it'll have no problem working in the front. So for the lower swing arms, I feel like these are going to be the best option. The only problem is, like I said, I gotta Dremel out a little bit of room here to get more range of motion out of this ball, and then they should be just like the stock plastic ones, but more durable. So that's what I'm hoping for. So I'll see how that goes, and I'll let you know once I do all that and see how it comes out. I'll show you. Now the upper arms, there's a bunch of different little things I found. So these little pieces came with, like, the little aftermarket kit that I think might have came with this stuff. It's been a while since I don't remember, but when I bought all the metal parts a while back, I think these little pieces came with it. There's two different versions of this kind of thing you can use I've seen out there, so I have this version. I might get the other version to see how they work out, but what's nice about them is that you can obviously use a little 2mm screw piece with them, and then you can put one of these on the end. There's different. These actually work pretty good for the top upper arm. It's got enough range of motion to where even with a little screw, I use a little like countersunk screw, so the head sits pretty low, and then I have that sit on top of the motor there. I'll get that out of the way. Sorry, I know I got everything all over the place, but yeah, I would sit that there, so when it's screwed all the way in, it sits lower than even the wheels, so it doesn't get in the way of the body once I put the body on, so I can get away with using these for the upper arms, while I can't get away with using these for the lower arms, because it's basically the same, they're from the same batch of parts. So these are usable, and these are not. So there's this version you could use, but there also is a couple other options too, I'll show you. Like I found these for tow, if you want to swap out the little plastic arms that come with the original set it's really for the rear end to have tow in or tow out, but the plastic ones that come with it are not adjustable, so you just get the one size. But these are the adjustable ones you can get that are aftermarket, to where you can actually make, you know, tow in or tow out by, you know, making these shorter or extending them, making them longer. So that's what they're supposed to be for. But I ended up using these for like the upper swing arms, and I still used half of them for the tow, but I made another half over here so I could adjust them a little bit better. And I had to put a screw through the bottom of the old plastic housing, so I couldn't use these because it had the the threading on here. I needed to have it to be recessed to where I could screw a screw into it. So I had to rip these out of there, which does actually bend the metal. So you have to like pry them out without messing it up too much. And then you have to shove that one back in there and then kind of use some needle nose and pinch the metal around it to where it holds it in place still. Otherwise it'll just fall right back out. Or if you pinch it too tight, it won't move. So you gotta like kind of manipulate it and mold it to where it's almost the way it was. I wish they just had some of these that had different versions where they had these in there, or even the really short, the short ones that are like this short, shorter than those. I wish it had some of those options, but they only come like this. So, and I just want this little blue piece, you know, without this piece in there, but I have no choice, so I have to rip it out and then force one of these in there and then kind of, you know, cramp it back down with some needle nose or whatever to get it to stay in place but still keep the range of motion. So that's what I had to do with the front ones here. So I used the short little balls to fit into this ball cup, and you can see I kind of shredded it up a little bit because I've had to manipulate and adjust it multiple times with needle nose, but it works. So now I can just tighten this up to give the front wheels more camber so it can tilt in more or push it out further, you know, so it's adjustable. And it still keeps its motion, so I can move it up and down, and it can rotate. So these are good if you can get them to work, but they are a pain in the ass to do. So I'm just giving you a heads up, if you try to do this, you're not gonna have fun. Yeah, it definitely wasn't fun putting these together, but honestly, these are the best option if you can make it work, because they're really low profile. You can use the same small little balls that fit on these wheel hubs, and then you can also adjust them, you know, back and forth if you want to get camber. So these are, I wish they would just sell these like this. That would be great, but they don't, so I have to pretty much make them. So yeah, those are the best option I have so far for the front, because I need to keep the front as low profile as possible because the hood is so low. I can't use like the other version, like one of these ends with the screw head coming up, because the screw head goes too high and it gets close to rubbing on the body. So I'd rather not use this in the front end. I can get away with using them in the back end, but not the front. So that's how I did that. And so for the back, I would just put the screw through here, get that in place, and then this will be your top swing arm that you can adjust in and out for any camber that you want. So that's what I'm doing for the rear end. And those seem to work fine, like I said, you know, with a little countersunk screw going through, and it's low enough to where it doesn't interfere with the body. And then I can also get enough range of motion out of it. So that's basically what I'm using as a replacement for all these plastic parts that come with the K969. But if you don't care about adjusting the camber or any of that kind of stuff, you can still keep using the plastic stock ones. These are great. Like, they work good with the little tiny balls. The ball cups fit good and they hold snug and they give you a lot of range of motion. So these are good for what they are if you don't feel like going down this road of switching everything out to metal like I'm doing. So don't think that you have to do any of this stuff. You can still get away with using this if you don't want to adjust camber or anything like that. So that's the other option. So this is what it looks like when you pull one of those out. This one actually came out pretty good without actually destroying it. Sometimes I get lucky and get them out without really manipulating the metal too much or bending it. And then other ones I kind of just, I scratch up or bend it a little bit further than I want, and even starts to crack here if I have to pry it out too hard, because you kind of have to like bend it out. So I really don't, like having to do this, but there is no other option. I just can't get these by themselves without having these already installed. So that's what I ended up doing. And there's two different versions of these kinds. Sorry about the focus. So pretty much the same thing, just slightly different style, but they basically function the same. So there's a couple different options out there with the same exact functionality. So just whatever you want to use will work out depending on what you're trying to do. So they do the same thing. As you can see, this one I actually used on the steering horn here. So that was good for that. And these plastic ones, they're actually really long ones that I cut down to make work. They have a little ball inside there that you put a screw through, and they're okay in some areas. I can't use them for like the top suspension. They're too bulky, but when it comes to like using it for the toe and stuff like that on down here, they work pretty good, because these give me a lot of range of motion, which is what I like about them. But they are too bulky, especially with the screw head coming out the top, to be able to use on top of the what do you call it, the wheel hub here. So I just used half of it for the toe, for toe in and out, and I used obviously the other side of this so I can adjust it longer or shorter. So yeah, that's basically what I had to do all these modifications for the swing arms. Like I said, you don't have to do any of these if you don't want to. These are just for like, durability or extra adjustment if you want to bring the camber in or push it out, or change the toe in, toe out of the rear. This is some other options out there that you can use other than trying to use the stock stuff, because the plastic stock ones you can't even adjust at all. So that's pretty much it for the swing arms and the CVDs. If you have any other questions, just leave a comment in the comment section and I'll do my best to answer it. But so far, this is where I'm at. I'm still in the process of rebuilding this rear end to redo the suspension. So once I'm done doing all this, I will do a video on the rear suspension, and I'll do another video on the front suspension, this 3D print setup I have going on. So I'll do an in-depth video of this and an in-depth video of this, and then some other little videos of other miscellaneous things. But then after that, it's on to the electronics, and then hopefully I'll be done with this build soon so we can show you how it performs. But yeah, once again, thanks for watching, and thank you for your time, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.